Welcome to Pioneers in Payments, where payments experts share their insights. Now, here's our host, Donna Blum.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Pioneers in Payments. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with O.B. Rawls from Jeroboam. Welcome, O.B.
Hey, Donna, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for joining us. To get us started, O.B., would you mind sharing a little bit about who you are, your background in the payments industry, and the work that you do at Jeroboam?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Golly, I've been in payments for a long time, just about 40 years. And I started working for Bank of America in the payments group there, and ended up running that. And then we sold our interest in that company to First Data. We created a joint venture that I ran for a number of years. And from there, I went to the UK and built the Lloyds Bank joint venture with First Data, and I was the first general manager and managing director of that business. I came back to the US, spent a little bit of time in healthcare, and then went to work for a point of sale company called Hypercom. We sold Hypercom to Verifone, and then I returned to First Data just as KKR was buying the business and took it private. And I stayed at First Data, where I did a lot of different things. But my last role there was running the third-party distribution, or the ISO and agent channel, and had a great time doing there. We accomplished our goal. We went public, and when that occurred, I left the firm and I took over a troubled asset in New York called iPayment. And we were successful and lucky to take iPayment to a transaction almost 3 years later, and we sold iPayment to PaySafe for about $1 billion.
Wow.
And then I spent a couple of years at PaySafe, where I was the CEO of global acquiring there. And I retired at the end of 2020. So since that time, I created an advisory business called Jeroboam Advisory Services. And I've been helping small ISOs, fintechs, and banks with strategy, with vision, with growth-oriented practices to help them create value, create wealth, and to take their businesses to different levels. I also have a few investments in the fintech space, and I'm fortunate enough to serve on the boards of 4 privately owned private equity or hedge fund backed fintech companies.
Wow. So you retired, but it sounds like you are still very, very active in the payments industry.
I kind of think I failed at retirement, to be honest.
I think a lot of people do. I mean, after you've invested so many years in your retirement or in your profession and your career, to just retire and spend your time on the golf course, perhaps that might be a little boring.
Yeah, I think golf courses are fun, but the mistake I made was retiring in the middle of a pandemic. What can you do?
Right. You can work.
I jumped into this business, and I'm having a lot of fun. And more importantly, Donna, I think I'm helping companies and people grow and realize their dreams, create generational wealth, help them take their firms to new levels. So it's a rewarding experience right now.
That's fantastic. And just having you on this podcast is along that vein too. The idea behind this podcast is really to educate, to share advice with payments professionals, payments organizations who have a lot of big decisions to make, and there's a lot of distraction out there today. So we're trying to basically distill everything that's happening in the industry and provide them with a clear roadmap forward. So let's go into the first question that I have for you. So obviously there's a lot happening in the industry today. What would you say is the top trend?
I don't know if I can pin it down to one thing, but I would tell you that we're in a period of transitioning, the business. ISOs and third parties and banks have always been the primary distribution, methodology. They cover the last mile in selling merchant services, to the merchants across the U.S. And that's changing some now as we look at the concept of embedded finance and embedded payments in the process. And that probably is the number one trend right now, as payments, how do I say it, are becoming invisible in the marketplace today. And it's unclear sometimes what we're selling when we talk to a merchant about acquiring services. I've always taken the concept of helping merchants stay in business longer as my number one goal. And if I can help a merchant stay in business longer, well, then guess what? I stay in business longer.
Right.
And that's important. And so understanding the concept of, I may not be acquiring to a merchant today. I may be selling software that manages a nail salon, or software that helps them run a pool supply business. And embedded in that software is payment services, scheduling services, accounting services. So the selling process is changing for a lot of merchants now, especially as merchants become more highly focused on their verticals.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're watching a decline of general mom and pop shops, and we're seeing much more focused businesses in the marketplace serving, I say serving niches, but they're really serving, high volume, high growth vertical industries.
Right. Yeah. Very good. Well, so the next question I have for you, obviously there's a lot of opportunities out there, but which opportunities are the best? In fact, my question is, what would you say is the biggest opportunity for organizations that process payments today?
Going back to that period of transition again that's occurring, I think it's not losing sight of your goal, whatever that goal may be, because there's a lot of distraction and clutter in the marketplace today. But we have to understand that we are serving merchants and they're managing their businesses. And again, our goal is to help them stay in business longer. Mm-hmm. So what do these merchants need? I've seen a lot of salespeople over the years make the mistakes of focusing on what's good for them, and that's so wrong. There's a guy in Atlanta named David Finetti who runs a really, really good ISO, and he operates under the concept of I'm going to get a merchant and keep them for the life of their business. And so he's all about service. He's about making sure that even if they have a problem or a service error or something that occurs, that the merchant's going to give his organization the value of the doubt and stay with them, because he's right there from just not only selling the service and installing whatever hardware or POS systems that they are in, but he's there after the sale. And I think that attitude for small ISOs and small fintechs and small ISVs is really important. And a lot of times the bigger firms lose sight of that.
Right.
They forget that, and their organizations are so big and so compartmentalized that they lose sight of the customer.
Right.
And that's our goal, is to maintain sight on our clients and to help them be successful.
Right. Yeah, a sale shouldn't be transactional, right? It shouldn't be viewed as a one-time, close the deal. It's a relationship, and it should be viewed as a long-term win-win type of relationship.
That's always been my philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's okay to celebrate a sale and say, yes, I just made $1,000 or $1,500 and sell it. That's fine, but you can't lose sight of that client's going to need you in the next 30 days. And, it brings another point to mind, which is maintaining our credibility in the marketplace, being honest, being true to ourselves, being true to our merchants' needs. And it's so important. And we lose a lot of that in transition or translation as we go from selling an account to boarding it, maintaining it, and servicing it after the fact. And so I believe that credibility is the number one value that we offer.
I agree. I like that. That's very good. Yeah. I mean, just that integrity and being authentic, being somebody that they can rely on. It's so important. That's what helps to build the relationship. So,
But it's also, if I may, it's also balance in the organization. And years ago, I worked for Hugh McCall, and one of the famous leaders of banking at Bank of America. And Hugh always told us that we had three goals. One was, take care of our clients, take care of each other, our employees, our associates, and to take care of our shareholders. And if we did that all in a balanced fashion,
right,
that the company grew and everybody prospered inside that value chain. And that's one of the most important lessons I've ever learned, and one that I believe is still true today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very good advice. I think any organization who puts too much priority on the bottom line and just focusing on the stockholders, for example, and their desires, that is very out of balance. So I think that's spot on. So OB, we just talked about the greatest opportunity. What do you see as the greatest challenge for these organizations that are in the payment space?
I think dealing with this period of transition that we're going through right now, the selling to the last mile will change, as we move down through the generations to the current generations of buyers today. There are people that are decision makers that are more comfortable with texting than email or face-to-face conversations. And we're watching digital selling come to the forefront. Look at Square as a good example. PaySafe is a good example of a digital selling environment where you can use the internet and all of the digital environments to attract clients that come to you. And they say, yeah, I like what you're showing me online. Now, how do I take advantage of it? And then the human factors take over and talk to the customers. And that's very efficient from a selling process, but it's not easy for feet on the street and the selling environment we have today to really understand. So how do you take the digital selling concept and expand it to digital service, digital support after the sale? And people are very, very comfortable with that. When I started in this business 40 years ago, people used to say the most dangerous place for a merchant salesperson to be was in the parking lot of a grand opening of a new business, because then people didn't really know how to buy merchant services. It wasn't advertised. And, in today's world, I can just go right on my computer and Google merchant services and get a plethora of opportunities in front of me. And I can explore them all online, and I can pick choices that seem to fit my needs. So we have to understand that this transitioning's occurring. The other thing that I think is really interesting right now is the bigger companies in the business, the Fiservs, the FISs, the global payments, are being commoditized in the marketplace. We've seen so many verticalized companies being created, the ISVs, the ISOs that may focus on winery sales or gun shops or smoke shops or whatever. And they're picking apart the big processors now and taking off what I think are high value, high margin, accounts, and they're providing this verticalized support for that industry.
Right.
And so, one of the lessons that it tells me is that those of us who are salespeople should learn to focus on something that we're good at selling, that we're good at managing, and then let that be our market. There's a ISO in the Midwest that is focusing on small businesses in small towns. I think that's just a really unique proposition. So they're trying to bring to small towns and small businesses the same type of quality of service and sales and support and technology that we see being offered, in the bigger towns. And, a lot of us don't think about serving Washington, North Carolina, or Beaufort, South Carolina, in these markets. And, Austin, that runs VisiPay, is very good at finding a niche, in these small towns. So there's still room to grow. We get 1 million new sales opportunities every year, to sell our products and services. So it's a fresh industry. The investment firms like it because we generate a lot of recurring revenue, and it's consistent over years. And plus we're showing a growth period right now. So our industry is well capitalized and well supported, and that just shows, bright lights for the future for all of us. We just need to focus on what we do and how we do it differently that better serves, the merchant base.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not all customers, not all verticals are alike. So, specializing and really honing in our services for that particular audience, helps us to stand out. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And a lot of us don't adapt to that concept.
Yeah, we treat everybody the same, right? Right. Different messaging, different services. And you're right. I mean, salespeople can specialize in certain areas where maybe their background is in a specific vertical where they're going to have the most success selling into that vertical. So, yeah, that's great advice. So my last question, I should say, is as we kind of wrap this all up, what if you had to give one piece of advice, let's call it your silver bullet piece of advice to organizations that process payments, what would that be?
I've touched on this before, but it's really simple. Be true to your organization's mission. Be credible in your offering of services. The concept of principles and values and core beliefs just permeates our whole beings, and it allows us to be genuine in our service of clients. And we don't talk about that because it's an intangible, of who we are. So I encourage people to have values, to be principles, and to follow the path that allows you to treat your customers, your clients, and your shareholders, all in a balanced environment. So focus on your missions, your goals, and follow up after every sale and every opportunity.
Very good. So if we have somebody in the audience that is listening and they want to learn more about Jeroboam, how could they find out more information?
Well, the easiest way is I'll just give you my email address.
Okay.
And it's ob.rawls@gmail.com, and just write me a note. I'm happy to have conversations, and always give free advice. You just have to remember what it's worth. Right? But happy to talk to anybody in the space.
Wonderful. And do you also, allow people to reach out to you via LinkedIn? Is LinkedIn something that you
Oh
still?
yeah,
Okay,
LinkedIn, and my profile is just ob.rawls, and happy to chat with anybody.
wonderful. Well, Obi, I just so appreciate your contributions to the podcast today. You have such a wealth of experience in the industry, and so I'm really grateful that you were willing to share, your pearls of wisdom with our audience today. So, anyways, you have a wonderful day, and I just also want to thank everybody for watching. Bye
Thanks for
now.
having me, Donna. Bye bye.